Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving right into the fascinating and often misunderstood world of AuDHD. We're going to unpack what it means to live with this unique blend of traits, what it actually feels like from the inside, and importantly, how we can all create environments that are more supportive. Let's jump in.
This image just does such a great job of bringing the idea of AuDHD to life, right? On one side, you have the world of autism. It's often structured, intensely focused, and really deeply thoughtful. And on the other, you've got the world of ADHD, just bursting with energy, with creativity, and a little bit of chaos. AuDHD is that incredible place where these two worlds meet.
I love this quote because it just nails the core of the experience. See, it's not simply about having autism and ADHD as two separate things. It's about how they dance together, how they interact, creating this dynamic, whole new way of being.
Okay, so let's make sure we're all on the same page here. Let's start with a really clear definition. What exactly are we talking about when we say AuDHD?
You know, what's wild is that for the longest time, the official diagnostic manuals actually treated these as mutually exclusive. The thinking was you couldn't possibly have both. But now we know better. We understand that a significant number of people meet the criteria for both, which results in this unique, blended neurodevelopmental profile.
So that's the definition, but let's get to the real heart of it. How do these traits actually interact with each other? This is so much more than a checklist of symptoms. Let's really explore what AuDHD feels like, day in and day out. This table just lays out that internal tug-of-war so perfectly. You've got the autistic preference for routine clashing right up against the ADHD struggle with organization, and that creates this constant, daily challenge of balancing structure with spontaneity. And then look at focus. You've got that deep, intense hyperfocus from autism versus the distractibility of ADHD. This leads to these wild swings between being incredibly productive and then not being able to concentrate at all. You see the same kind of push and pull with sensory needs and social interactions too.
And this right here is the perfect picture of that internal conflict in action. Just imagine it. You spend hours creating the absolute perfect color-coded schedule. You feel this amazing sense of calm and control. But then, the moment it's time to actually follow it, the ADHD part of your brain just rebels. It craves something new, something exciting, and finds that beautiful schedule incredibly restrictive. That's a real, daily struggle for so many with ADHD.
Now, because this experience is so unique and, frankly, complex, it's often misunderstood, and that leads to a lot of myths floating around, some of which are pretty harmful. So let's just clear the air and tackle some of the biggest ones head-on.
This is a huge one. And honestly, you can't really blame people for thinking it, because even the medical community held on to this idea for a long, long time. The logic was, how could you possibly be both structured and chaotic at the same time?
Yeah, but the science, it tells a completely different story. It turns out these conditions actually share some underlying neurological pathways. This includes things like how our brains regulate dopamine, that's the chemical tied to motivation and reward, and our executive functions, which are kind of like the brain's project manager for planning and focus. So there are very real, biological reasons they often show up together.
This next one is a really tough one. It's so harmful because it unfairly puts all the blame on the individual. It basically frames their neurological differences as some kind of character flaw, as if they're just not trying hard enough.
And here is the absolute truth, and it's so important we get this. ADHD is a neurobiological condition. It's how a brain is built. It is not a choice. You can't just discipline away differences in brain wiring. What actually makes a difference? Support, strategies, and accommodations that work with the brain, not against it.
Okay, so busting those myths is step one, and it's a huge step. But now let's get practical. Let's talk about real, tangible strategies that can help people with AuDHD not just cope, but truly thrive.
For a lot of people with ADHD, the world can feel like it's been turned up to 11. A sudden change in plans, a room that's just a little too loud or a little too bright, it can all become completely overwhelming. The brain essentially gets overloaded, leading to intense distress that can result in a meltdown or a shutdown.
This is where proactive strategies like these can be absolute game changers. A visual schedule provides that predictability that is so incredibly calming for an anxious brain. A simple 5-minute warning before switching tasks gives the brain a heads up, making that change so much smoother. And a sensory toolkit with things like fidgets or noise-canceling headphones gives a person an immediate, personal way to regulate when things start to feel like too much.
This is such a perfect real-world example of how this works. For Noah, these strategies weren't just abstract ideas on a slide. They were actual tools that transformed his classroom experience from something really stressful into something manageable, and that allowed him to learn and participate without being in a constant state of anxiety.
All right, let's tackle another huge hurdle: executive dysfunction. Think of your executive functions as the CEO of your brain. They're in charge of planning, organizing, and actually getting started on tasks. When that CEO is struggling, it can affect everything, from getting homework done to paying bills on time, and it can lead to this constant feeling of being overwhelmed and behind.
So the key to supporting executive function is to provide external structure. Instead of a huge vague task like write an essay, you break it down into tiny manageable steps. You use external tools like phone reminders and timers to do some of the remembering for you. And you can try something called body doubling, which just means working alongside another person. That quiet accountability can be just what you need to get started.
Aisha's story is just so powerful. It shows that her success wasn't about fixing her executive function. It was about finding the right tools and this is the most important part, having the confidence to advocate for herself, to ask for things like an extended deadline. That self-advocacy is a true superpower.
Okay, so we've looked at the challenges, we've talked about strategies. So what's the big picture here? After all of this, what's the main takeaway? What's the path forward?
This right here, this represents a massive shift in perspective. It's about moving away from a model that asks, "What's wrong with you?" and shifting to one that asks, "What are your unique strengths?" It's about celebrating AuDHD as a different way of thinking and being in the world, one that often comes with incredible gifts, like deep creativity and out-of-the-box problem-solving.
So let's boil it all down. These are the crucial points to remember. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Success requires personalized, flexible strategies. It's about empowering people to advocate for themselves so they can get what they need. And, at its core, it's about creating supportive environments that turn challenges into strengths, instead of forcing people to fit into a world that wasn't built for them. This chart just sums it up beautifully. You've got these 3 pillars of support: personalization, self-advocacy, and a supportive environment. These are the foundations that truly empower individuals with AuDHD to build successful, fulfilling lives on their own terms. And that's the powerful question we want to leave you with. What if we stopped asking how to fix people and started focusing on fixing our environments? What if we started building schools, workplaces, and communities that truly embrace and value every single kind of mind?